Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Ocean's Mirror. So, as you could tell by the title, that today I'm going to do Katrina 20 years later. Now, I do remember when Katrina happened, um, as um, as well as other events, but Katrina more stands in my mind because of the circumstances in which the people had to go through, the finding out about the levies. I think at one point I watched a series that was centered around the Katrina survivors and how they was trying to get their compensation and stuff like that. Now, um, I do normally watch the documentaries on Katrina. To me, it's sometimes you have to watch things to remind you of what happened at that time, and plus you start remembering where you was. So what I'm gonna do, let me find one of the right. So let me put on the screen one of the people remembering what happened in Katrina.
Like crashing waves coming over the levee, and then we knew it was no way out.
On August 23, 2005, a storm of historic proportions was born. Its name, Katrina. After making its first landfall in Florida as a Category 1 storm, Katrina advanced into the Gulf of Mexico where it underwent rapid intensification, strengthening into a monstrous Category 5 storm. And on August 29th, Katrina made its second landfall as a high-end Category 3 hurricane in Burris, Louisiana, about 60 miles south of New Orleans. With ferocious winds of 125 miles per hour, Katrina tore through the southern Louisiana and Mississippi coast, yet its catastrophic storm surge in New Orleans that etches Katrina in our memories. Dozens of levees were breached, inundating the city. Highways were transformed into raging rivers, and entire neighborhoods were submerged beneath relentless floodwaters. 80% of the city was left underwater. The nightmare was unimaginable for those who didn't or couldn't evacuate. Countless people were stranded on rooftops for hours and days, desperately waiting for rescue. Hurricane Katrina claimed nearly 1,400 lives, making it one of the deadliest hurricanes in U.S. history. The storm, which caused an estimated $125 billion in damage, forced hundreds of thousands from their homes, resulting in one of the largest internal displacements in American history.
Now, I think to this day they're still trying to wade through some of the houses that were submerged underneath the water. Um, there was quite a lot of people that passed away, quite a lot of stories. Some of the stories which was highlighted, I feel there was one where a lady said that how when she was getting saved, she saw a I think it's a child, a toddler or something, go past, and she wanted to get the child so that she can um, give the child a proper burial. But then the one who was steering the boat was telling her that how it's better she look after herself than she go for that child. Now that really sticks in my head because it's the way the lady told the story. And there are many stories. There's many stories, especially when they were in the stadium, how things was happening, people was taking advantage of people, taking advantage of the vulnerable. So many things was going on. Now I know that I've heard that a few of the reactors that is in the mummy sector was around in the areas and spaces and stuff helping out. But to me, when these disasters happen, right, it sometimes makes you reflect on how where you're living. Like me, particularly, I always remember 9/11 and certain stuff because I always remember where I was where I heard the news. I also remember President Bush not getting to help the people. I also remember that how the length of time it took them to get to the people. Then went on to another platform, and there was a video of some men talking. There was on the next side of the quarters, so they were saying that how every time a person would reach that side of that quarter, that they would pow them basically, and that how it was like sport to them. And it's strange because in disasters it can either bring the good out of people or the worst out of people. So what I plan to do is put up some of the stories because it's my way of paying, remembering, however, the people that passed and all that stuff. They took long to get their compensation. Whoever got compensation, some places never did get back to normal. However, even though Louisiana is one of those places, it seems to me that how it's a surviving space, right? Because of the history or whatever. Um, they survive. They survive a lot of stuff. They was able to get back certain the quarters where they had people, tourists will come down and have the Mardi Gras and all that. They was able to clear that up. Now on Netflix there is one where they talk about the Zulus in the Mardi Gras, and they talk about what they went through when during Katrina. Now they lost a lot of comrades, and they lost a lot of people and whoever. So the stories goes into other stories as well. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna play at least one of them. You know, I'm gonna play at least one of them. That's what I'm gonna do. Okay, let me put it up here. Now you always remember where you was when you hear or when you was hearing about Katrina. I think I remember sitting indoors watching it on TV, watching what was happening, watching them on the roofs, watching them in boats, watching them crying out for help, and nobody came. So I'm gonna play one of the stories or a couple of them to at least reflect the survivors at least.
It felt like packing was a quick rush. Grab the pictures, grab our important documents, grab a few days of clothes. And then my heart was kind of deflating because as I'm seeing people wade across Canal Street in bins, I'm like, we're probably not going home. When you think about New Orleans through the lens of Katrina, it's this veil that's over everything. I'm Jordan Bridges, and this is the house I grew up in and came back to after Katrina.
This is the nightmare that New Orleans residents have worried about for years. As New Orleans mayor said, this is perhaps a once-in-a-lifetime event.
The eye alone is 32 miles across.
And with all that water, there really is not much place for it to go.
I was about 17, 18 years old when Katrina hit. I feel like we were one of the last people to leave the city.
We drove all the way through the night to Washington, D.C. That's where we spent the next 4 or 5 months, in the D.C. area.
We were in a hotel room. I remember being next to my older brother, and my parents just kind of looked at us and was like, well, we're not going back, guys. My dad's a contractor and he's on the road and coming back and forth.
So I would get up at 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning, and I would drive from DC all the way to New Orleans, and then I would stay here for a week or two, and then I would drive back to DC and stay there for a week or so, and then back and forth from Katrina time until middle January. I had a bunch of clients that were in need as the city was dark, and it kind of threw me off a little bit because we were living in DC where everything is beautiful, it's nice, everything, and then I would come back to New Orleans to where it was like a bomb had went off.
We need water, we need ice, we need food.
But I remember when I first came down, water and everything was in short supply. So all of the staging area, they had a line that was going like down to the end of the street and around the corner that people were lined up to get water at the local park. I had a little bit of a personal guilt trip brought on me because we had a lot of opportunities. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, you do electrical work, 3/4 to 7/8 of your city is out of power, and you're just gonna leave and just leave your city hanging. And so I kind of had a conscious effort to just come back and kind of help the city along like a lot of good people did.
All of the houses that had the markings on them, and it was code to the first responders and stuff like that, like where bodies found. All of this was hit really hard. It's a little surreal, to think of what it came from, what it used to be, and what it is now.
A lot of people never came back because they were traumatized. They lost family members. We lost a couple of family members. We had lost friends. Everybody was displaced. And you wouldn't think 12 years later that people would still be dealing with Katrina issues. And it's kind of a low profile because we don't want to concentrate on the past too much. But still, some people are just moving back now after 10 and 12 years.
On January 17th in 2006, when we came back, just came back to a ghost city. It felt like martial law. Everybody had to be home from 6 o'clock.
Now imagine now, right? Imagine now, because I think this is how I think New Orleans is, right? In a vibrant city, the hurricane hits, so that vibrancy is gone. The sounds, the music, the people, everything. Putting yourself in the shoes of the people is something else. Martial law. Now, remember, I told you, when I was in Trinidad, I've been in a coop, so I can imagine that it was curfew. You have to be off the streets at certain times. You can't be out and about. Like people can't have parties, can't do this. You can't meet up for certain stuff. It's sad times. You know what I mean? I would say you can never put yourself into the shoes of a person. You can never walk in their shoes, right? So this guy, he's 17, everything's normal, but then they have to pack up and go and leave from the spaces and where they are. You're getting moved around, you're getting put into what is supposed to be a safe place, but it's not a safe place because there was a lot of stuff that went on in that stadium part as well. And I think a lot of people tell the story of what happened in the stadium, how they hear people crying, children crying, stuff going on, gangs doing a lot. There's even an image of a prison bus, and they're on the bridge, and it's like they're waiting to get picked up, but they're waiting so long. That was one of the images I remember. They're on this bridge. You see all these prisoners on this bridge, And later on, come to find out that President Bush was playing golf somewhere else. You know what I mean? He didn't even send out some of the help. He didn't send help to them at all until way later.
And I remember the first day of school in New Orleans was actually on my birthday. Real bittersweet. So many questions. Who's gonna fix all this? Why are all the restaurants closed? Where did the people go? What's gonna happen? And now, post-Katrina, what hope lies ahead? Watching the city come together for something like that is what makes New Orleans what it is. I love New Orleans with all my heart. There were people that gave their lives figuratively and literally for this place to be what it is. For some of my family and some people in the city, they would say Katrina ultimately opened their eyes. For some, they'll say that it washed away places that they'll never get back. I want to believe in a city that learns and is learning more and more how to take care of its vulnerable communities and protect that history and that legacy. 13 years later, post-Katrina, especially as in my mind as somebody that went through it, I can still see the lasting legacy that even that'll have on the people here. Do I see myself leaving New Orleans? Probably for a vacation. Go see something for a little while, go experience the world for a bit. But God made New Orleans unique and beautiful enough for me for a lifetime. So I'm here.
North of Miami. From there, it moved back into the Gulf and hit Louisiana 4 days later. The levees failed, New Orleans flooded, and more than 1,800 people lost their lives.
A lot of families in New Orleans raced to find refuge right here in North Texas.
Tonight, Brittany Moncrief shows us how some of them came for immediate safety and found a new home.
It's not just the ice.
All right.
It's the identity.
Everybody asked that.
What's the difference between a snow cone and a snowball?
The ice is totally different.
Snow cones are crunchy, while snowballs...
Fresh snow falling from the sky, that's what a snowball is. See the softness?
And this New Orleans treat is what Kelly Bowden grew up having.
So you got wedding cake syrup.
It's why she started Snow Nola in Cedar Hill.
My kids, they probably would never get the lifestyle and the culture that I did growing up, simply because we all relocated to Dallas.
When Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans
What a cheesecake.
in August 2005.
My original plans was actually to come here for the weekend, just to get away from the hurricane. With a little drizzle.
But the deadly hurricane sent roughly 50,000 people to North Texas.
Your Chantilly. That was 20 years ago, and here we are now.
But Kelly made a point to bring a taste of New Orleans here.
Fish basket, side of shrimp.
Just like Deshaun Cagnolati, who reunited with classmates to open the daiquiri shop in Grand Prairie.
Just having a daiquiri in your hand was always a part of the culture. It's almost a symbol of the city if you had one.
And this symbol, along with Elmer Chiwis, a good old po' boy,
so one with no tomatoes,
are signs of resilience.
You were abruptly pulled out of your culture and put into another culture.
Because Hurricane Katrina might have changed homes, but it didn't change hope.
Bring the culture here. That way, other people can get an outlook of how New Orleans culture is.
Anything I might have forgotten that you want to add?
In Dallas County?
No, as long as you remember the difference from a snow cone and a snowball.
I'm Brittany Moncrief.
August deals have arrived.
They wanted us to die. I was here with my family and my grandmother, mom, little brother and sister. My grandmother didn't want to leave here, so we kind of stayed with her. We was here for 5 days. I'm surprised that this building is still standing tall after 10 years later because, you know, during Katrina, I thought it was literally going to collapse on us. Water started coming in when the levees were broken. I think the whole first level was filled with water. See, like right on that brick area where that hole is, that small little hole, look right over it, you can see a line going across. That's where the water was. When lights shut off, it was that night, that Saturday. From that night on, 4 days afterwards, we didn't have no power. So we had to kind of like make stuff work. It was only actually that day that it stormed. But from that point on, it was, you know, a sunny day, like nothing happened, you know, but the water was everywhere. I mean, you can see bodies also floating. I'm not sure who those people were in the helicopter, if there was news reporters or anything like that, but it was just watching us, not helping us. The lifeboats is the only, you know, rescuers that there were at the time.
Man, those images, man. Those images. Of the bodies on the car and all that. Man.
We floated all the way from Reed all the way down to Sheffield to a highway. That's where the dry land was. Just gonna pull through. Everybody was here, you know, most of New Orleans East. It was like a big crowd out here. Random people was getting hurt or getting killed or already, you know, dead. So I was kind of looking at that as a motivation to move forward, you know, so because that could be me or one of my family members right there. After Sheffield to Highway, we went straight to the convention center.
That's what it's called, the convention center. Loads of stuff happened at the convention center. I wonder if he's going to talk about it, because there was a lot of stuff that went on there, a lot. And I put that in comments, a lot. Underline it.
You know, on that 18-wheeler truck.
Like, what were you thinking when you were driving down?
Why most of these areas is not flooded? I couldn't get that part. It was like it was almost staged or something, like it was purposely done.
From what I remember from this, right, they were saying that how the levees got blown out, that somebody blew out the levees that will keep out the flood water from the city. So there's a barrier, like I can't remember what part they are, but on the part, there's a part where there's like a flood thing that keeps the water from going over, and it seemed like someone blew out the barriers, and that's what made the water flood into that part of Nola. So yeah, that's what I remember mostly, because that was the talk at the time, and people was trying to get compensation or whatever they needed. Some people who didn't get it, like there is a scene in Treme where the actor, I forgot his name, where he was fighting so hard to get compensation for his place, or I think it was, because you can see the displacement of the people, but yes, still they still kept on going, they still kept on doing certain events and stuff like that. And in Treme, the actor, I think he plays I forgot his name, Dan, or I think he's, and he goes and he unalives himself because he was fighting so hard to get the compensation. They was taking long to give him the compensation, and he, in the end, unalives himself. And it's like it was showing the true scene or the true feelings of the people in Katrina at the time, because they had to work to start put themselves together. They had to work to clear up the streets. They had to do that all themselves. So when I hear people from New Orleans, when you know the struggle of another person, you tend to look at their strength. And I feel that this was one of their strengths. Not only that, what only was against them was the race. There is a thing on Hulu, which I don't know. Well, there's quite a few documentaries on Katrina. But the one on Hulu where they explain about they're not being rescued, and then you have these palm people talking and saying that how it was like shooting day for them, and this and that, and anything that moved they will shoot it and stuff like that. Now that was on one of another platform, and that's when you see how dire it's a life and death situation, right? There's children being misplaced. There's children set in situations. You don't know who you're around. You could be around anybody. There was loads of abuses and stuff going on, assaults, all sorts of stuff going on. So to me, Katrina is a lot bigger. It just shows you the mind of people as well, and what happens when these tragedies happen, these big tragedies, because this is a tragedy and a disaster. So it just shows the mindset. Now, this young man, I like how he talks about the vulnerable. He talks about getting the family together, where they was, and how they had to try and go inland quickly, try and get to inland so they can be safe.
Again, I was wondering, are we going to be safe? Are we going home now? I mean, I wasn't told I was going to the convention center. I just thought we was going to, a better area.
No water, no ice, no sea rashes, nothing for the last 4 days. Dead people around the walls of the convention center, laying in the middle of the street. Babies, 2 babies dehydrated and died. I just tell you, I couldn't take it.
First day here, it was kind of crowded. I mean, like almost the whole city was here. And like I said, they let out the prisoners also. So you had a lot of criminals were here too. So you had to kind of, watch it back. It wasn't safe at all. Well, they didn't have really like no type of security in this area. As far as the inside, it was like no cops, National Guards, nothing in there. Just see like the look on my family's face, how they was just looking like they was losing hope. They was moping around, walking, and even though I know it's not a happy time, but you can just feel that vibe like they're just giving up. Seeing the family jump off this bridge right here, holding hands. guy and his wife.
See, it's a lot deeper than what it is, you know. You know, the way how he's talking and he's giving that scene there of the family. Can you? I don't even want to imagine it. To be honest, you know, no security, lack of security. You don't, like I said, God knows who's in that place with you. You don't know who is there, right? Babies crying, children crying. Mm.
Wife and 2 kids. Who, when I tell you the whole convention center was screaming, watching them fall, I was not about to let that happen to us. I couldn't. But yeah, it was right here in Hall H. Just one big cemetery in here. Was camping right up in this area, right on against the wall for a few nights. What helped me remember this spot, because of these escalators right here. It's the same escalators I went up, was looking for beverages for our family and stuff like that. Stalking, it was real dark up there. I found a flashlight. This is right in the exact spot upstairs I saw a little girl in the ice chest, wrapped in sheets, was murdered. Like I said, I was only 14 years old. So it's real terrifying. I mean, he'll scare me now if I went up there and see the same thing. They just kept telling us, the bus are coming every day, I guess to kind of minimize the chaos of what was going on. But the only thing it was doing, at the end of the night was making everybody more angry because no bus never came.
I don't know, man. I don't let them walk out of here. Let them walk the hell out of here. Walk.
And people will take it like it's humorous. What is humorous about it? It's human life, man.
To some other town. Walk someplace where you can help them.
My final car, we try to go up this bridge to exit. So, I'm nervous when they tell us to pull over. I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to get my family killed. 3 other guys came over and pointed rifles in each window. So we had rifles in 4 windows. Good thing that was this good cop. He was like, you know what? Say, I'm gonna let y'all go, but do not come back for anybody or anything you left. Just keep on going, never come back. After we made it past the police, it was like a big weight was lifted off everybody's shoulder. You heard a big sigh in the car. So,
you kind of feel like you were sort of rescued or saved in some sense.
Yeah, I felt, safe. I was around family and we're on the road. We're not stuck in this one area. I just felt more safe than anything. And then we was out of Louisiana. That was like the best feeling ever.
Because you have something on your side. I always think when people go through certain stuff and they come out the other end, that is a fight or flight moment. That there was a fight or flight moment for this young man. So I'm gonna play. Oh, did I play? No. I'm gonna play. Hold on. Let me get the thing. Oh, the screen's gone. Back to normal. Let's do it again. going to play the impact.
12 years later, the long-term mental health consequences of Hurricane Katrina. Highlights. Abstract. In August 2005, Hurricane Katrina caused unprecedented damage, widespread population displacement, and exposed Gulf Coast residents to traumatic events. The hurricane's adverse impact on survivors' mental health was apparent shortly after the storm and persisted, but no study has examined the long-term effects now that more than a decade has transpired. Using new data from a panel study of low-income mothers interviewed once before Hurricane Katrina and now 3 times after, we document changes in mental health, and estimate the socio-demographic and hurricane-related factors associated with long-term trajectories of mental health. We find that post-traumatic stress symptoms, PTSS, declined at each of the 3 post-Katrina follow-ups, but 12 years after the hurricane, 1 in 6 still had symptoms indicative of probable post-traumatic stress disorder. The rate of nonspecific psychological distress, PD, remained consistently higher in all 3 follow-ups, compared to the pre-disaster period. In full covariate-adjusted models, no socio-demographic variables predicted long-run combinations of PTSS and PD. However, 12 years later, exposure to hurricane-related traumatic events and pre-disaster PD significantly predicted co-occurring PTSS and PD. Hurricane-related housing damage predicted PTSS in earlier follow-ups, but no longer predicted PTSS in the long term. Furthermore, hurricane-related traumatic events significantly differentiated the risk of having persistent PTSS, relative to recovering from PTSS. The results suggest that there is still a non-negligible group of survivors with continued need for recovery resources and that exposure to traumatic events is a primary predictor of adverse mental health more than a decade post-disaster. Introduction. Approximately 10% of the U.S. population will experience 1 or more natural disasters in their lifetime, Goldstein et al., 2016, with mounting evidence suggesting that such events are increasing in both frequency and intensity, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change IPCC, 2012. Natural disasters are associated with a wide range of adverse mental health consequences, among them post-traumatic stress symptoms, PTSS, and general psychological distress, PD. For reviews, see Goldman and Galea, 2014, Norris et al., 2002. In the short term, these consequences are not distributed equally in the population, as prior research demonstrates that women, persons of color, those with lower socioeconomic status, and those with pre-existing mental health conditions are at increased risk of post-disaster psychiatric adversity, Neria et al., 2008, Norris et al., 2002. Less is known.
Alright, okay. Let me go to other stuff now. I'm just going to compact this live with loads of information, to be honest. Because they have to deal with the landfill, they deal with a lot of stuff. Hold on.
Quaint shops and civic buildings line Jeff Davis Avenue in downtown Long Beach. Grant Graham, left, with the Mississippi Crime Lab in Biloxi leads a group of searchers looking for victims of Hurricane Katrina in the rubble of homes off US 90 in Long Beach Sunday. Hurricane Katrina battered the area Monday, destroying buildings, and with high wind and a large storm surge. R.J. Pierce of Long Beach recovers tiles and other items from the home of friend Jocelyn Turnbow called English Village, a block off US 90 in Long Beach Thursday. With almost every city building destroyed by Katrina, recovery has been a slow process. R.J. Pierce of Long Beach recovers tiles and other items from the home of friend Jocelyn Turnbow called English Village, a block off US 90, in Long Beach Thursday. Long Beach Mayor Billy Scully hopes a new town green will bring entertainment and people to the city. Scaled-down replica submarines sit on the lot near the museum office trailer. Students at Reeves Elementary School in Long Beach watch as a plane drops dozens of handkerchiefs fashioned into a tiny parachute added to a cookie in bubble warp during a chocolate drop by members of the Mississippi Civil Air Patrol at the school Monday. Bobby Ryan narrates a videotape of the remains of his home off West Ave in Long Beach Sunday. Hurricane Katrina battered the area Monday, destroying buildings, and with high wind and a large storm surge. Jeremy Goading of Charleston, SC, uses an axe to chop trees outside Lacey's barber shop on US 49 in Gulfport Sunday. Grant Graham, right, with the Mississippi Crime Lab in Biloxi, leads a group of searchers looking for victims of Hurricane Katrina in the rubble of homes off US 90 in Long Beach Sunday. Hurricane Katrina battered the area Monday, destroying buildings, and with high wind and a large storm surge. Lorna Richardson said some of the valuables she recovered from her home on West Ave in Long Beach Sunday after Hurricane Katrina destroyed the building, along with the other homes on the street, Monday. Jean Bose of New Orleans looks some of the items she saved as a stray dog she has nicknamed Hurricane 9 sits on the street next to her on S. Gerard St. in Long Beach. Bose, who was staying with a friend, said she had to hang onto a tree with one of her cats outside the home when the storm surge crested just above the top of the door. Long Beach Alderman Charlie Boggs, here at the family property along U.S. 90 where his home once stood, is in the middle of a fight that will determine what kind of new construction goes up along the highway. A heavily damaged housing complex off US 90 in Long Beach sits much like it was right after Hurricane Katrina a year ago. Many of the complex buildings closer to the beach were totally destroyed, and the rest were heavily damaged. One of the major hurdles for residents hoping to return to coast is a lack of housing. Jim Welsh places timbers in his yard to divert water expected to roll through his yard as he and his wife Kathy, background, prep their house on Magnolia Street in Long Beach for the arrival of Hurricane Isaac. The slab in their backyard was the foundation of a house that belonged to the property's previous owner, washed away by Hurricane Katrina. Despite the progress in rebuilding the Mississippi Gulf Coast, reminders of Hurricane Katrina are still prevalent almost 2 years later. Signs for newly constructed business, like this Waffle House in the Gulfport Long Beach area, stand among those destroyed by Katrina. Chris Todd / The Clarion Ledger, Chris Todd / The Clarion Ledger. Despite the progress in rebuilding the Mississippi Gulf Coast, reminders of Hurricane Katrina are still prevalent almost 2 years later. Construction is well underway at Arbor Station, advertised as luxury apartments homes, just off US 90 in Long Beach. Like many new developments, the stark reminders of Katrina are right next door. 228-868-196. Caption, Tommy Crass, right, of Long Beach asks John Simmons of J. Levens Builders in Long Beach to watch for his missing gun safe lost somewhere in the debris field of his neighborhood Thursday morning. Crass removed the weapons from the safe prior to the arrival of Katrina. When her returned, he found little more than a concrete slab and no safe. J.D. Schwal, caption, Father Louis Lohan of the St. Thomas the Apostle Catholic Church in Long Beach deals with the logistical problems of getting the church and its parochial school back in operation Thursday morning. He said he was especially grateful for the assistance the church has received from St. Richard's Catholic Church in Jackson. The church was rebuilt after the destruction of Camille in 1969. The structure was heavily damaged by Katrina. J.D. Schwalm.
So that's the ledger. That's the ledger of people that survived during Katrina. So that's why it's just going through like the things like the house that got washed away, the property that the guy was trying to save, that he had to put the timber around it, the pow where he had to go retrieve it, and then he finds that how it's just and cinnamon singing blocks. So Katrina's a lot. It's really a disaster that is so huge. I think the world, whoever was around at those times when it happened, like unless you was around that time to hear the news and see the images, particularly. To me, I feel it's good that how you watch the documentaries because you get idea of the people and what they went through even more. Because even for that young man to say that when he went up the escalator to go and get food or something for his family, he saw a young one in the frozen box, and it really scared him. And after that, he never went up there. And it just shows you that how during times like, especially when it's something as big as that, the fact that's why I was talking about the prisoners on the bridge, because that was one of the talks that came up in a few things where like where the prisoners they never came to get the prisoners, and the prisoners was put into that center with people. There's no security, nobody to secure people. People was getting robbed, probably all sorts of things was going on. You know, it's one, and obviously race against time in the documentary, because I've seen bits of it. I think one lady on one of the TikToks, I think she broke down because, like, when you hear the stories and you hear what happened in the center itself, particularly, then you hear bits and pieces how they was asking for people to help them, for help. It was on national TV. The whole world was watching as it seemed like America turned their back on Katrina. So it was like fight or flight. That's the only way I can describe what you were seeing on the screen at the time. I think me and my children, we was in front of the TV watching it because I kept watching it, and I kept keeping up on what was going on, because I feel that was one of the times where, like, you can see that they didn't care less for the people. You know, such a vibrant place with so much culture. Even I think there's a guy that I follow from NOLA, and he explains about what happened when he was in Katrina as well. And I think he's a actor as well as a spiritual practitioner. And there was even in saying that how the water was so high. Now there is a cemetery in Katrina, and Marie Laveau lies there. In, you know, that's her where her grave is, and they said it was above all the water was so far up, like you couldn't even see the graves, even Marie Laveau's grave. So that's to you how far the water went. And even when you watch certain programs containing to it, like Treme was one of the ones that I watched. I remember watching Treme, like I said, and you see like the people come together. You see how they fight to come to get what is due to them, where they will go to the town hall and they will try and get things sorted, and it will never got sorted. It never got, you know, to one of the characters, like I said, unalived himself in the end in such a tragic way. And he was a lovely character. Like I said, like though like you can't be in their boots, in their shoes, but you can imagine, and I'm sure the ones in America, because I'm not in the US, right? I'm sure they can even tell me stories of them being in Katrina. It's the same with the flood from a couple months back. How they were able, like I was getting so much what you call it, comments about the floods and stuff like that. Like you yourself can't even imagine being in that situation, but at the same time you can imagine being in that person's shoes. And I feel that how anyone who's from across the pond, as they say, even if you put a little bit of, if you was round Katrina, if you went to help them, if you was in it, I mean, like, I know there's loads of documentaries out there, but it's when you see it and you read it, is when it sinks in a little more, it sinks in even much more. So, and humanity has this thing, when a disaster happens, as we can see in certain places right now, it's the vulnerable, the old people, the young people, the women, it's even men as well, because that's when everyone turns, it sort of turns apocalyptic to, it's like every man for themselves, right? And the most common victims and certain stuff is always the children, the women. You even see it in Congo, you see it in Rwanda. These is what happens most of the time. So when I put Katrina in the same boat as that, the only difference is what it was, the water that took over the place, but then it was humanity, how humanity reacts to certain stuff, because humanity, it's like you go against your neighbor, your this. That's why when I talk about certain stuff, when I watch certain things in the past, and sometimes I see it play out in the present, the thing that comes to my mind is how humanity how another human reacts to another human in that time. Is either a fight or flight time, right? Is either you're my enemy, that's all I see, that's it. They don't see you as a comrade or nothing, because remember, people will do things in that moment, some dreadful things. So, let's not be living in fairy tales. There's some dreadful things that does occur. There's some deadly things that occur because the human mind turns so bad. That's why there was that racist bit is what hit me when I saw that little cut of that video of the men talking about, oh, we unalived anything that moved, right? Mind you, it's people who's trying to survive, is trying to get to the other end. So you can end up somewhere where like you're trying to get to, and someone will unalive you, or like in that guy's place, he was saying that how when he got there, as they're crossing, as him and his family's crossing, the police stopped him. There's Glocks pointing at you, left, right, center. And then it's like one policeman was like, yeah, let him go, kind of thing. So it's like an angel's put in place, but some people, it might not be so lucky to get to the other end. He said that how he saw loads of bodies all around him. Bodies, you even seen the images, the bodies floating in the water. Like the two babies that they showed on the TV screen at the news, how they died, how they passed because of dehydration and stuff like that. I tell you, humanity is messed up to such a level that I think even now, especially now, because like we've got the worldwide, the internet, the other things going on, it's like people turn heartless. They turn heartless. The ones who's doing stuff, like I said, I always refer to Ringo Vision. The other day I posted up Soup Kitchen. There is people who's doing work, but those people will never get seen sometimes on a bigger thing unless they're mentioned, or unless there's some place. And humanity can be messed up. Humanity, like, we are our worst enemy. We as human are our worst enemy sometimes. And in these times, this is when you really truly see the monster comes out of the people, because you see that person who was probably all calm and whatever, or who you used to see every day, when something major happens, that's when you see that devil comes out of that person. So I just thought, because like I know 7 grams and I think another guy, when I posted up the remembering Katrina, I forgot his name, when they saw that I acknowledged it, because like you have to acknowledge these things sometimes, whether you're across the pond, whether you're anywhere in the world. So it's kind of like a tribute to survival, right? And this is what it is a tribute to survival. That how, like, the even the young man, the 2 young men, because like I could have put up more stories, but you know, YouTube's funny, innit? Their first thought is, how do I get my family out of the situation? That's it. I just want to get my family out of the situation. I don't want to stay in the thingy center of all these people. There's crying, there's tears, there's death all around me. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So I'm just gonna leave it there. Here, you can leave a comment underneath the live. I would say just like to remember them, really. Like the page is Ocean Yemi. So obviously you put a sunflower, you could put a story, a small story. You don't have to go in deep. You don't have to say where you was going as deep. You can just give a small, because I know people give a small comment on how they felt when I was there and what they did and stuff like that. Well, you know, it's long, I still read it, because to me, I like to put myself in the people's shoes, and you know, like I said, I remember it. I remember that. I remember watching it over here on one of the news platforms over here, and how they were crying out for help. No help came. President Bush, or George, I think it was at the time, playing golf, living his best life, while these people are over in New Orleans suffering. So you know what I mean. So I'm gonna leave it here. You can watch it on replay. I know, like, sometimes I put up certain stuff and people don't watch it, but it's not. It's I feel that how some conversations need to be had as well. Sometimes it's good to talk about all the other stuff, but it's good to talk about this. Then, like, you hear it from the other person. The only reason why I don't do panels, because when I used to do panels and I asked for people to come up, they will never come up. Or it would only be my friend and me sometimes. And sometimes, right, we want to hear other voices too. So people don't come up. So that's why I don't do panels. Sometimes I want to do it, but then it's like you get rejected. So I thought, you know what, I'm not going to run no panels unless it's specifically for the certain people. But I feel that with certain subjects, it needs to be spoken about, because I always said to people, whether whether you're in England or whatever, right? At the same time, right, you are melanated at the end of the day. Like, everybody goes through different struggles, different things, different things happen. Like what's happening now over here. Different things happen. Sometimes it's not that you're trauma bonding. Sometimes trauma bonding could be a good thing, and trauma bonding can be a bad thing, because you can learn a lot from the other person, right? So when you think that how right you're living, you're bad, and then you hear someone even worse than you, you're just like, oh my gosh, like sometimes I wish that I can reach through cyberspace and give hugs to a lot of people, because when the stories come up and they're present, right? And I'm not a huggy person myself, but when you hear their stories, you hear how they made it through, you're just like, damn, like, you know. So I'm not going to prolong the live and make it 1 hour. I'm going to leave it where it is right now. And happy Saturday in all the saying. I'll say sometimes it's good to, like the same how you pay homage to ancestors, right? These people was innocent in everything because somebody must have bombed the levees to make the water come in, right? And I might do something on the levees because I feel they probably did do something to the levees. I believe that. Okay. I don't think the levees broke by themselves or whatever. Maybe they are old, maybe, but yeah. So with that said, I'm gonna leave it right there and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.